fellow investigators, and welcome to our video podcast, Into the Darkness, where my friends and I play the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. I'm your host, Tom Rayleigh. Our scenario is The Plantation. It was written by Wesley Martin, and it comes to us from a collection entitled Mansions of Madness. It's part of Chaosium's popular line of Call of Cthulhu scenarios, and is available on Amazon.com. Our game master for this scenario is Troy Wheeldryer, who first GM'd for us back in mid-October of 2015, when he ran That Damned House, which you can watch on this channel. Most of the player characters in the game will be reprised from that frightening scenario. And so, without further ado, the players are ready. Let's begin our journey into the darkness. Troy?
Okay, hi guys again. So we're gonna actually start sort of where we left off with our investigators that were sort of stranded in Middle America after escaping the caverns of a horrible toad monster. Currently, the investigators are, kind of wandering around aimlessly. They have no idea where they are. They have a suspicion that they are somewhere in, probably the Great Plains of the United States, but that's about all they know. After a day or two of wandering around, the investigators are basically collapse one by one. A few days later, they awaken in a sort of hut or hovel of some sort, and they're being tended to sort of in their exhaustion. They get little glimpses of people taking care of them and nursing them back to health. But once again, they're sort of fading in and out of consciousness. Walton, at one point, is awake for a few moments and notices a man standing over him, and he's just sort of staring at Walton. He isn't anything. It's pitch black. You can't see anything else except for this man standing over you. You notice that he's Native American. He's standing over you, and he's silent for a few minutes, and then he just says, "He has noticed you. You will see his mark soon." And then you pass out. Yes.
Awesome. Hooray.
And then you pass out again. A few days later, you guys are all pretty much nursed back to health. The train is coming by. Apparently, you all were taken in by a hunting party. You had wandered onto a reservation, in near the Kansas-Oklahoma border. And the tribe took you in and nursed you back to health. But the train is coming by and will take you back out to Massachusetts. If any of you ask sort of what, Walton, if you mention the man, they'll say no, it was just women review. There was no man. We don't know what you're talking about. And they know nothing about the cavern. They know nothing about the, if you bring that up even to them, they have no idea how a bunch of, city folk from the east ended up in the middle of nowhere. But I'm sure you all are eager to go, unless you had any other questions to ask.
What people. What tribe are
they? The Wichita tribe. All right. So you guys get on the train, headed back to Arkham, and we'll kind of fast forward here 6 months later. I just want to go through each of you kind of individually and just sort of give me sort of a explanation of what you all were doing, and then I'll end with you, Wayne, and you can kind of explain, your character's background to us as well.
Okay.
So go ahead, Thomas Walton. You can start first.
Okay, so after the events at the Hazard House, Walton went ahead and he wrote 2 books. His first book was called The Hazards of Investigating. It was essentially the story of how he, not anybody else, found the hazard pearls and returned them, and found he deduced it all himself. And it got published, and so everyone's like, "Oh, look, he did it." He also then wrote a second book called That House on the Cliff, and that was the true story of what happened. He goes into great detail about everything, and he wrote it, and no one wants to publish it. They think it's all fake. They think it's baloney. They don't want it. It won't sell, essentially. So no one is publishing it, and he's just trying to push it. And he's like, "This is what really happened. I have people who can corroborate it." And they're like, "No, that's not what happened." He's also stepped up his paranormal investigating. He originally, before That Damned House, he was a skeptic, and he was kind of like, "Oh, there's, it's pipes or whatever." Now he seriously takes everything legitimately. Anything that comes to his door, anything that's reported on, he goes himself and he looks into it. So he's been taking the occult now for the last 6 months very seriously, trying to do any background knowledge on essentially what happened in the house, especially after what happened with the Native American man. He's now trying to figure out what exactly happened to him when the little boy licked him, because as we all remember, that's what happened to the cousin, the uncle, and he became like that. So he's wondering if, am I immortal now, or am I going to turn into that? Yeah, so that's what's going on with him.
Awesome. Okay. Dr. Brunner.
Yes. Well, after I got back to my wife and children, I tried to in my family life. I sort of left my practice. I no longer wished to treat people, but I became fascinated with forensics, and so I began to help the local sheriff and the police department to examine the dead bodies. I worked with coroners, and I became fascinated with trying to figure out the human body, but when it's dead, and what happens to it. I lost a little bit of my sense of humor. I no longer am a pacifist. I carry a gun with me at all times. And I feel oppressed by the world. It's a much darker place than I first imagined. I also became obsessed with the occult. I began reading every book that I can, and also I got a few times to visit some of the restricted areas of the Miskatonic University to see some of the books that are there and consult them. That's it.
Cool. And Mr. Tillman.
Edward is the private investigator, and I think after this, he was pretty broken. Didn't quite know how to handle everything, and he kind of closed down his private investigation for a little while. He hit the bottle a little too hard, but due to necessity, he had to get some money, so he reopened his investigation, and he called in his buddy James to try and help him out, and kind of he needs validation because he's very confused right now. So he's also looked into the occult now, but it's all kind of above him. It used to be that he would investigate something and it was usually black or white. You're guilty or you're innocent. Now with the introduction of paranormal and the weird things that we saw, there's a lot of, he questions himself a lot. So he's kind of looking to James to either help him out or reinforce him.
Dr. Taylor. Or Tyler.
Taylor.
Taylor.
I told you, if you don't get my name exactly right.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, so Dr. Grace, she has thrown herself into her occult research, but hasn't really gotten anywhere with it. She has become more closed off. Her fiance Adric has threatened to leave her if she doesn't open up to him about what happened, as he's convinced that she is cheating on him when she is not. But the fact is, she felt a little violated after that last encounter in the cave, and she started practicing a lot more with her gun, and she got a little better at that. And she took a lot more excursions, climbing excursions, where she could be on her own. She feels safer than ever when it's just wide open spaces, no one around for miles. So she did quite a lot more of that. And let's see, that's pretty much what she's been up to.
Cool.
She never wants to be in that position again.
Yes. All right. And then Mr. Murphy, go ahead and introduce your character to us.
Okay. I'm James Murphy. I work as a detective for the Arkham, Massachusetts Police Department. I went to Miskatonic University, where I studied law, as well got into the occult. My family is from Ireland, and he was really interested in a lot of the old fairy tales and old folk tales of Ireland. And when he came to Miskatonic, he didn't realize they had an occult class, so he studied the occult and he got deeper into it. It's not that he truly believes in it, but he finds it interesting. It's kind of like taking a class of mythology. Yeah, he was basically working during this previous case. He was working in Arkham, and he came back. His friend Edward basically closed down shop for a while, and he basically went around just to check on Edward, and Edward is telling him this wild story, and that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
Cool. Okay. So here's kind of the situation. It's a beautiful day. It's a Sunday. Dr. Buna and Dr. Taylor and Walton are meeting at Dr. Bruner's house in Arkham, just for tea, kind of to, maybe discuss their occult findings. It's kind of become sort of a regular sort of meeting for you guys, just to sort of
we're the only people
commiserate.
that we can talk. Yeah, we can talk about it together.
Exactly. Yeah, kind of commiserate together. You don't go into too many details with what you saw because, even now it's hard to sort of come to that conclusion, but just being together is helpful. So you all meet for kind of Sunday tea. Mr. Tillman and Mr. Murphy are in a car together, driving to Dr. Bruner's house. Tillman, you're gonna want to kind of you're wanting to introduce Murphy to this group and kind of bring someone else into the circle. So we'll start with you guys in the car, yeah, if you want to just kind of freewheel it here for a little bit.
So yeah, you said that you had something to talk to me about, Tillman.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I appreciate you coming along and having me on here.
Anytime. You've been a great friend over the years.
And I'm going to say some things and fill you in on our backstory. You might have read the book from Walton. I don't think he covered it truthfully. What I know about your second book?
Yeah, if we've all met together, I probably actually asked you guys about, is this exactly what happened to you? Do you think that we should add this? We probably all wrote it together. Like, we all collaborated on it.
Okay. But basically, I mean, I'm just going to give you kind of a quick rundown as to what happened.
Okay.
I was contacted by an organization, an insurance company actually, and they held insurance on something called the hazard perils. It was a family, the Hazards. They supposedly owned the perils, and the perils were supposedly stolen. Our group went in to investigate. It appears as though there actually was a burglary. We found signs of broken windows or access into the living room. But from there on, things just got weird. Long story short, it seems as though the burglar never made it out of the house. He was, I don't know what the right word is, devoured maybe by some sort of a creature.
What kind of a creature?
I'm not even sure how to describe it. I think the best way to describe it is that it was one of the family members who had become deformed of some sort. That's the best I can recall it, basically. Into some sort of like toad-like thing.
Oh, you mean like those Innsmouth folk?
Similar to that, yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. It was a strange family. I mean, some of them seemed normal and nice. I do remember fondly their cucumber sandwiches. But it also spiraled out of control because we woke up back in our hotel, and yet there was all sorts of strange goings-ons. The time seemed to slow. There were children involved, although I'm not sure they were real children because they were, I guess, deformed is the best. Like, I don't know.
Were you drugged?
I'm not going to say no to that, but I really don't know.
Well, what happened with this family? Did you get the other police?
The house that we were investigating collapsed into a chasm, and it seemed as though most of the family was killed or lost. I believe the son and the daughter may have escaped.
And I'll add into that. Ellery, the guy, he ended up dying of exhaustion out on the plains. So you guys had actually transported his body back. Isabeau never fully recovered psychologically, so currently she's in an institution. So
question: would I have read any of this in the paper about like a large house or mansion collapsing into a?
Yeah, and this is a pretty well-known incident with the pearls being stolen. It was national news.
Okay.
As was the burglar himself. So you guys over the past 6 months, you would have noticed a few articles saying like the cat burglar hasn't struck again. Like, this is really weird. Like, usually he's been stealing, stuff pretty regularly, but, he's gone. And, the last place he was suspected of stealing pearls from, collapsed and the entire family perished. So,
as I recall, didn't Walton thwart we found out where he was and who he was? And...
Yeah, I found the pearls in his house, and I found all the stolen stuff, but we never found him.
Right.
Yeah, we never found the body. But we'll just say, for the sake of simplicity, that the insurance company just kind of wrote it off and just said that, well, the burglar got away with it and the pearls are gone.
But they didn't have to pay out. because of the family. Well,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess that would have been.
There was nobody to make the claim.
Right. Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. The whole family's gone.
So the insurance company is happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the insurance company, won out in the end, I guess.
Was that area known for like earthquakes or anything like that? Any sort of natural phenomena?
The house was built on a cliffside, and I guess geologically, you could explain that maybe the cliff was hollow on the inside, or wasn't stable.
Okay.
But the fact remains that the house was there for 400 years and nothing happened. So, no earthquakes in Mystic, Connecticut.
Now the book that was written, did it explain any of the supernatural stuff, or was it just kind of?
I'll leave that to Walton. It sounded like, from what he explained, that he kind of said everything in that second book. I don't think the first book probably said anything about that, but
now in the bookstore, is it under fiction, the second book?
Well, he said he couldn't get it published, the second book.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No one believed the second story, but the first story was a sensational, flash in the pan. It sounds like kind of book, but
okay. And I asked Tillman, have you told anybody else about this? I mean, besides what was written in that book that never got published.
No, you're the only one I've talked to.
All right. Well, you know me. I have an open mind to certain things. I don't know. I had never experienced anything supernatural, but I've studied it, so I have an open mind.
I'll interrupt you guys here. So as you guys are driving, you're pretty close by to Dr. Bruner's house. All of a sudden, a little kid walks out in front of the car. Murphy, I'll have you driving because you have the higher automobile skill, and I'm sure Tillman's probably a little shaky behind the wheel anyways. So go ahead and do a drive automobile roll.
I get a 64. I don't pass that.
Okay, so you hit the boy pretty hard. He strikes the ground pretty hard.
I get out of my car and I go to see if he's okay.
Okay, let me roll to see if he's okay. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, he's pretty banged up. He's still conscious, but he's you can clearly see he's bleeding from his arm. And what you notice is he's a boy of probably about 8 or 9. He's black. Looks really out of place in Arkham, Massachusetts. Kind of ragged clothes. He doesn't have shoes on, which is something that you notice right away. He's pretty beat up.
All right, I will. I'll run over to like a phone box or something like that, if they have one, and I'll call an ambulance.
Okay. All right. And what are you doing right now, Tillman?
How far are we from Dr. Bruner's house?
You're pretty close. You're like a couple blocks away.
Couple blocks. Because he is a medical doctor. So I'm going to suggest to James that maybe we just throw him in the car, place him in the car, and might drive over there because it might be quicker.
You're right. Good thinking.
Okay.
And then I'm muttering curses like, why the hell did he just step out of the middle of the road? Look both ways before crossing the street. Blimey.
I guess the obvious too. Is his parents around or anything?
No, there's no one else around. You guys are kind of in the suburbs right now, so it's just houses really. Actually, I don't know, Dr. Bruner, would you live downtown or are you more suburbs?
Who, me?
Tom. Tom.
Me?
Yeah. Are you more in the suburbs or are you downtown? I just assumed you were
going to
in
be
the
kind
suburbs.
of in the suburbs, yeah.
So okay, so if you get him into the car, you kind of hear him say like, "I'm sorry," and you know
How does he look?
he's
Like,
apologetic.
does he look like malnourished?
Yeah, definitely. Very, very skinny. Pretty malnourished. Yeah.
I tell him to hang on. I'll take you to a doctor friend that can look over you.
Okay.
And,
Yeah, he's kind of out of it. He's a little loopy. He probably has like a mild concussion.
Okay.
So yeah, so okay, if you put him in the back, so you guys drive over to Dr. Bruner's house, and take him in.
Yeah. Well,
Dr. Bruner, can you help here?
What on earth? Quick, bring him in here.
Yeah. So I'll bring him in. Now, yeah, so the damn kid just stepped out of the middle of the street, and you know, I'm a little shaken because I could have killed this kid, but
Let's take a look. Can I do like a medical to see if I can diagnose what's wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, do either a medical or a first aid.
Yeah, I pass.
A pass. Okay. So it's stuff that you can mostly take care of with, you know, regular household.
Well, what does it look like has happened? Has he broken an arm?
So he hasn't broken an arm, but it's definitely a really bad scrape on his left arm. It's bleeding pretty profusely,
Okay.
You know, because he was pretty malnourished. You know, he took the blow pretty hard. So he like I said, he probably has a mild concussion.
Katarina, bring me my my kit. My wife. My wife.
My wife. Okay. And then go ahead and do I guess like a D. I'm not sure what the roll is for medical. Is it
Medicine?
a D6?
I think it's
Medicine.
D4.
Oh.
A D4.
Oh, medicine,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, for first aid.
Oh, it's actually right here on the thing. It says
Okay.
First aid is usually just 1 hit point, and then
medicine heals 1 D3.
1 D3. Okay, go ahead and roll for that then.
So that's a 6. So I heal what? 2 hit points of damage.
2 hit points. Okay, cool. So he's better now. You stop the bleeding. You know,
I need something to eat.
Yes, definitely. He's you know, he's kind of coming to now. He'll still have kind of the lingering effects of the concussion too, but you stopped the most egregious stuff. And so he's a little shocked to be around, you know, all these white people basically, and he's just like, you know, he's very nervous. You could tell he's probably never been in a house as nice as, you know, Dr. Bruner's. So he's a little kind of shell shocked from that. And he says in a very distinctive Southern accent, and I'll try and do it, but he says, could you all help me out? Could you all help me out?
Then where is your family?
Well,
We
and
need to get your mommy and daddy.
he's kind of looking off, and he just says, well, my sister's in a peck of trouble. I was hoping to find Master Gist. Somehow I know he's up here, and I know he'd be willing to help me. Do you all know a Master Gist?
I'm not so sure who this is. Do you know where he lives?
Yeah, I kind of do, but I don't know how. I can show y'all.
Okay.
well, first we're gonna get you patched up and get you something to eat and
Yeah.
something to drink. But kid, you have to be more careful out here. You know, I could have killed you.
Well, I made it this far.
Yeah, and you made
Where
it
did you come from?
Well, I live in South Carolina. I made it. I don't know exactly where I am right now, but I just know I gotta go find Master Guest.
How long have you been traveling? It's a long way from.
I don't rightly know. But you could tell Dr. Bruner from looking at his feet, because once again he's barefoot, that he's probably been walking for days on end.
Is his feet bloody and
Yeah, they're super calloused. You can tell. Any one of you probably, well, especially Dr. Bruner, but any one of you that grew up in a rural setting can tell that he probably grew up on a farm or something like that, because his feet are just like
he's got tough feet.
Yeah, tough feet. Yeah.
I say this. This isn't my house, but I turn to Dr. Bruner and I stretch out my hand and I say, James Murphy, nice to meet you. I'm a friend of Tillman over here.
Yeah, it's a good man.
Yeah. Is it possible, once we get him fed, to get him bathed, and I'll try to look for some clothes. I'll run out and.
No, you don't need to worry about that. We'll have my wife get some clothes for him. I'm not so sure that perhaps we should alert the police.
Well, I work for the police department, so.
Good.
Joe's kind of like eating.
I think I've seen you. Yeah, I sometimes do the forensic stuff for the police.
That's you. Yeah.
While you guys are talking, Joe's kind of eating ravenously, and he's just kind of like looking at all of you suspiciously. But
not too fast, my son, my boy. Don't make yourself sick. There's plenty of food.
He kind of says in between mouthfuls, he says like, I don't really want the police involved. I don't really trust the police, but
why not, son?
His family may be in trouble.
My sister, she's. I don't know.
Why don't you finish your meal? We'll leave you in peace right now. Finish your meal, and when you're done, tell us all about what's going on.
Okay.
I'm a detective, so if needs be, I won't inform my lieutenant. So just tell me what's going on, and perhaps we can help.
But my main concern is that he is not has a concussion too bad, because if we don't want him to pass out.
You have any ice or something like that?
Well, I think I do.
And from what you guys can kind of tell from him, he's just kind of full of like nervous energy. Like it doesn't seem like he's like exhausted or like going to like pass out or anything like that. He's more like, okay, we gotta. There's something like driving him to town.
Okay.
So yeah, if you guys kind of get him cleaned up or whatever, or if you ask, like kind of,
we'll have my wife take him upstairs and bathe him and see if we can find some clothes.
Okay.
See if she can determine what size he wears so that we can, get him something from.
Okay.
You know what? Perhaps. And I say to my wife, I say, how old does this boy look?
Well, so like I said, he's probably 8 or 9, but he looks even younger than that, just from malnutrition.
Okay. But you'd say he's about the size of an 8-year-old?
Yeah,
okay.
Roughly.
My youngest son is 18. Okay. But my wife never throws anything away, so we got trunks of clothes up in the attic.
Perfect.
We'll see if we can find some clothes for him. Probably has some shoes.
I'll go up and help with that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So while he's getting dressed, did you guys want to discuss anything, or should we?
Yeah.
Okay.
He came from where did you say? North Carolina?
North Carolina. Yeah. That's
South Carolina.
South. Was it South?
Was it South or North?
I think it was South.
Well, yeah, that's even further. Well,
this is extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, let's find out what sort of trouble his family is in, and see what we. Well, I don't want to drag you guys into this, but I mean, I can help him out.
Yeah,
I intend to help him out.
he keeps saying, what is it, Master Geist?
Yeah.
Something like that. What is he, a master? Is
Probably a boss.
well, like from the slavery days? It's very strange.
Yeah.
I don't know if they
Well,
still do
perhaps-
that in.
Well, perhaps he's a he and his family are like housekeepers. Especially
No.
down south, it's he looks like he comes from a farm, so
Yeah,
he works for this Master Gist.
Yeah, I've been only here into the United States about 20 years, but I've never been down south. I've always been up here in the north. So I know that you had slavery, but I don't know what goes on down in the south still.
Yeah, I like staying up north myself, so I haven't been down there, but I know of it.
Well, let's get him cleaned up and see what we can find out.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll fast forward a little bit. So he's all cleaned up, he's fed. Dr. Taylor, go ahead and roll a psychology roll since you were kind of helping him get dressed.
Ooh, I've only got base.
Okay.
Well, let's see what we find. 76. Nope.
Okay. So you just kind of know that he's pretty frantic. Like he's kind of wily. Like he doesn't really want to stay in any one place for long. Basically, he just kind of keeps saying, some of the bad's going on at home, and I need to see Master Albert Gist. His brother's up to no good. I need to go see Master Albert, and he lives around here.
Okay.
Listen, Bruner, maybe we should take the kid to the actual police. I mean, no offense to James over here, but we're not really qualified to be doing missing persons or whatever the hell it is.
Yes, but the Arkham Police Department is not exactly. Oh, sorry, James.
No.
Yeah, and I wave my hand, and I say, regardless, we don't know this kid.
Why don't we look up this Albert Gist and see if we can find his family
All right.
in the yellow pages, or the white pages.
And the little kid kind of chimes up and he says, he's kind of like my family.
All right.
What do you mean by that, sweetie?
He's kind of reluctant to press the issue, but he just says he's family to me. Just bring me to Albert. He'll explain everything. Master Albert, excuse me. He'll explain everything.
Well, can we look it up? I think if we got a phone book.
Yeah. So if you look it up in the phone book, you do find a listing for a Professor Albert Gist.
Oh.
He lives just sort of a short distance southwest of town. It's not really in the town proper, but it's a short drive.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's phone him.
Is there a phone?
Yeah, if you try the phone number, he doesn't answer.
Okay. Well,
There's no answer.
Well, let's
So
go.
how about we pack him in the car and we take him over there and see what's going on?
It's like afternoon, like 3 or 4 right now.
Okay. What time of year is it?
It's like April, May, so spring, beginning of summer.
Okay.
Your allergies are kicking in, and it's 1924, yeah.
I actually I sort of kneel down to the kid and I ask him, "What is your name?"
My name's Joe.
Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Joe, I'm James. Nice to meet you. We're gonna try to get you back to your family, and I'm gonna at least help out wherever I can.
He doesn't you notice he doesn't really look you in the eyes. He just kind of nods.
Okay. How are you? And I ask him, how is he feeling? Are you feeling a little bit better now?
I guess I feel okay, but I need to go see Master Gist.
Yeah, we're gonna take you to him now.
Should we all go, or should just perhaps Detective you and you two detectives go? Or about?
Yeah.
You don't need to get involved in this, Bruner. I look over as I take a drag of my cigarette.
Who does he in the group of us? Who does Joe seem to feel more comfortable with?
I'd say probably Dr. Taylor, just because she's, a woman, and pretty. Yeah, so I'd say probably Dr. Taylor, but like I said, he's pretty frantic at this point. Like,
Right.
He's not, like, getting really all that relaxed at this point, which makes sense. He's in a totally new place, and if you believe his story, he's been walking for the past probably several weeks, so
I think he likes you, Dr. Taylor. You would you mind taking him this
Oh, no, I don't mind at all.
gentlemen?
All right.
All right, you stay here. Volton, you can stay here with me and have some coffee.
All right.
I
Well,
sort of scoff, like, yeah, great. Getting involved in more shit that we don't need to get involved with.
Yeah, I know, but it's just a kid.
Doesn't matter. Letting a random kid into your house, we don't know his name, on the street, malnourished, could be homeless, could be looking for something to take. I take a drag of the cigarette.
well, and I hear that, and I turn to the doctor, and I say, if something's missing, I will compensate you for it.
Oh, don't worry. We have plenty. We have more than enough.
Thank you. And I say thank you for your kindness, and I directly look at you and kind of glare at this other one over here.
I kind of just wave a hand like, I don't care, and I sit down on Bruner's couch, and I'm just waiting for you to leave. We were having a fine conversation before you guys showed up.
And so it begins.
Yeah?
Be sure and come back and tell me what happened. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So Tillman, Taylor, and Murphy are all headed out with Joe. Okay, cool.
And as we're in the car, I turn to Tillman. I said, "What is with that guy? What's
Yeah.
his problem?
He's just a little
An
hard
ass?
to get along with.
He's an ass? Yeah. Okay.
So, Volton, you know that I can perform minor surgery and remove that sticks up your ass.
Great, so that I can beat you with it because you guys are letting strangers into your home? Yeah, you do that.
I glare at him and say, "What is wrong with you? He's a little boy." And I walk away.
I said, the last little boy we dealt with licked the back and injected something into me. So, pardon me.
Okay. All right.
I
So
turn up my collar just in case.
yeah. Oh my god.
I turn to Tillman and I say, when this is all done, I'm gonna have little Joe here lick the back of his neck.
Great. Now all of you have like a fear of young children. That's great. Be a new phobia.
All right,
Okay.
So we head over there.
Okay, so you head over to it, and you notice Joe is pointing out shortcuts, how to get to it. He has this weird, almost sense of where the house is. The way that you would normally go to it, Murphy. He's able to show you shortcuts and side paths how to get to it.
The type of shortcuts that cops usually take if we're chasing.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I say, you sure you've never been up here?
he just kind of shrugs and he says, "I don't know. I just sometimes get these feelings, and sometimes these feelings come true. And then he just kind of gets quiet and he starts staring out the window. He kind of like
So what can
cuddles
you
up to Dr. Taylor.
What can you tell us about this trouble that your family is in?
I really, I don't know if I can say. Master Albert will know. I'll tell him.
Very
He'll
well.
know what to do.
Very well. I give this sort of sideward glance to Tillman and shrug my shoulders and continue to drive.
Okay. All right. So you pull up to Professor Gist's house, and it's really more like a farmhouse. It's a single-story kind of. I don't think they had ranch style back then, but it's like a single-story farmhouse. It's pretty modest, but it's nice. It is fairly rural. There aren't a lot of neighbors out. You kind of have to take a dirt road to get to it. But from what you can kind of tell from the outside, it's basically like a converted farmhouse from an abandoned farm. As Arkham kind of industrialized, a lot of these farms, went out of business. And so now they rent it out to, starving professors and the like. So if you get out of the car, you'll notice there's a lot of kind of trees around. It seems like things have kind of grown up around it. There really isn't a sense of where the farm exactly was or what the farm did, but you can clearly tell it's in the style of a farmhouse from the previous century. So if you get out, knock on the door, he answers the door and he kind of looks sort of with a puzzled look, and he says, "Can I help you?"
Oh yes. Good day, sir.
And then he kind of interrupts and he sees Joe and he's like, "Joe, what the heck are you doing up here?" And you can kind of tell his accent is more refined than Joe's, but it's the same southern accent. Yeah. And he kind of a little bit harsh. He grabs Joe, and you can tell he's like trying to be friendly, and Joe kind of like stiffens up a little bit.
And I say, a little careful. This young man just sort of jumped in front of my car earlier, and I got into a small accident.
Oh my God! What happened? Come on in.
All right, I come on. We come in, and I come in. I don't want to speak for everybody else, but
I'll come in.
I'll let you.
Okay. Everyone goes in. Okay. All right. So he kind of pulls Joe and he's like, "Joe, are you all right?" And Joe says, "Yes, sir. Yes, master. Yes, Master Gist."
And I say, yeah, the boy says that he came up here looking for you. He said that he and his family were in some type of trouble. I had a doctor look over him. We got him patched up, and he was in tatters basically when I ran into him. So we got him cleaned up and patched up. So yeah.
And Professor Gist just says, "Yeah, he looks pretty good. He looks pretty good. Here, come in, sit down. Have would you like some coffee or tea? It's been quite a long drive to get out here."
I'll have a cup of coffee.
Okay, let me make you some coffee here. Joe, go sit down here. Thank you so much for helping him out. I can't believe he came all the way up here. So
about your brother.
And that you can tell he kind of ignored that on purpose. He kind of like ushers you into his study. I wasn't able to load up the little picture of the house, but basically it's pretty standard layout. There's like a study, sort of front entryway, a bedroom, a kitchen, and a bathroom. That's pretty much it. And then there's a front door and a back door. So he kind of ushers you into the study, and he goes out to make coffee, and you kind of hear him, in the kitchen, kind of puttering about. If you guys kind of look at the books that are on the mantle, it's pretty standard psychology So if any of you have studied psychology at all,
Yeah.
yeah, you'd be familiar with it. You know, there's a little bit of Freud and Jung and stuff like that. And then Murphy, you also notice there are some occult books. They're pretty standard, though. There's nothing that you really haven't seen before. You know,
Open spirit. Let's go look at that.
Yeah. So it's stuff like, you know, 19th century, you know, spiritualist, you know, stuff like that. Theosophy, kind of stuff like that. You know, pretty standard occult fare.
So in other words, it's got a copy of the Necronomicon on there too.
Yes, yeah. There's all the good stuff is there too. Yeah, ripe for the taking. So he returns with the coffee, and you know he has it all nice and set with the carafe and everything. And he kind of sits you all down in these sort of, you know, overstuffed, you know, chairs that are pretty nice. And sits you down and says, "Okay, Joe, why don't you tell us all what happened to you? How'd you get up here?"
How
so
is
Joe
Joe looking during all this?
very
Stiff. Up in the
stiff,
kitchen.
very stiff. He's just been kind of like standing there. He hasn't sat down. He's
Is he
just
like
kind of
nervous or?
very nervous. Yeah, nervous, just still, but somewhat less frantic than you noticed. He's just kind of there, you know. So they all sit down, and Joe's just still kind of standing there in the center view, and you know, once again he's kind of put on the spot, you know, with a bunch of, you know, white people staring at him. He's pretty nervous, but he says, "Well, Master Albert," and then Professor Giz kind of stops and just say, "Just call me Albert. It's really okay." And he says, "Well, Master Albert, it's Master Caleb. He's been messing around with the Mojo Man. He's come up to the plantation from down south somewhere. And this man's been doing something." He kind of stops. He says, "Master Caleb and this man have been doing something secret. Now they're going to hold some kind of ceremony down there in the swamp. Remember that Obeah stone?" And Professor Giss just kind of nods his head and says, "Yes, can continue on, Joe." "Well, they're going to do that ceremony down there in the swamp by the Obeah stone. They got my sister, Master Albert. They got my sister. They came right into the house and grabbed her. They grabbed her and my ma. He's holding them prisoner. They tried to catch me, but I was too fast. I lit out across the swamp and didn't stop running until I hit the highway." And he kind of pauses, and if you look over at Professor Gist, he's gone very pale. He's still kind of nodding, but he's very pale. And he says, "Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you for sharing." And he says, "Please go wait in the kitchen." And
I'm
Joe,
gonna do an occult roll to see if I know what the Obeah stone is.
yeah, sure, yeah, all of you can do that, yeah.
Oh, 94. No.
I make it.
You made it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Tillman, do you have occult?
Yeah, 30, but I got a 34. So.
Okay. So Murphy, you would recognize it. Obeah is a kind of like a cult that sort of started up in the South. Cult's probably too much of a strong word. It's more part of a Southern spiritual tradition that has sort of been spread around by the slaves, and it's sort of a mixing of there's a little bit of like Christian influences, but a lot of it's kind of related if you're familiar with Santeria.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Yeah, it's kind of related to Santeria. Voodoo's kind of involved in it, but basically it's sort of a, let's see if there's a better explanation. Yeah. So I'll just kind of read this section here. And he'll, Professor Gist will kind of go into this too, but I'll just read this little paragraph here. The beliefs and practices brought to the South by West African slaves are sometimes called Obeah and sometimes called Mojo. These beliefs are significant to the background of this investigation. Let me see. The worshippers of the religion are Obeah. The religion is Obeah, and the world is Obeah. So it's a very general term. You would know that. There's many entities, there's many gods, some are good, some are bad. Obeah isn't good or evil, it's pretty neutral. You would know it's a pretty wide-ranging belief system, and once again, it incorporates, Christian theology, West African theology, Caribbean theology. So you would know it's a pretty general, all-encompassing spiritual world.
Okay.
So you would kind of have some knowledge of that. You wouldn't know like anything of the particulars of it, but
Right.
anyone with sort of like a passing knowledge of
What I know
that
that they
about
do. What I know if they do like human sacrifices. I mean, I would assume.
You would no. You would say you would know that that's not a regular aspect of Obeah practice.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be. It's not a common element to it. But once again, there's many different iterations of it. So, so once Joe leaves, guess he kind of gathers himself and he apologizes. He says, "I'm very sorry you had to hear about this. From what Joe told me, it sounds like my brother Caleb has committed some grave errors of judgment." And he kind of stands up and he turns kind of thoughtful, and he's just kind of waiting if you have any questions kind of at this point.
What is involved in this ritual that he speaks of? Seems like you know a bit about this.
Well, I'll explain. My brother has been, shall we say, interested in the study of ancient forms of magic, and he kind of pulls off a book and just sort of, it's very like performative, kind of like what a professor would do in a classroom, and he just sort of like flips through this old occult book or whatever, and says, this magic is, I really haven't taken it that seriously. Obviously, I'm an educated man. My brother Caleb is not. He fancies himself a practitioner of the occult, and he kind of slams the book back into its place. He's quite unscrupulous, but he never seemed to show more than an amateur's interest in these arts. But now I learned about this. And then he kind of gives sort of a general overview of like what the Obeah is, and he just sort of says, he kind of passes it off as just this sort of slave, a holdover from the slave days. He kind of goes on, the Gist plantation has been owned by my family for generations, and Joe and his family worked there as sharecroppers. My brother Caleb, after a dispute we had years back, lives there by himself, running the plantation. He doesn't make much money at that, I might add. I visit usually once a year, but my brother and I's relations are quite strained, and I do not stay there very long. For the last year or so, I've heard rumors about his behavior, but now I'm convinced something's amiss. I don't know about the things Joe has said. These sharecroppers are quite superstitious, especially when it comes to Obeah. You can't always believe everything they say. Caleb's foolishness and bad management have gotten entirely out of hand, though. It almost seems certain that Caleb is terrorizing these poor folk for his own amusement. And worse yet, he's got himself involved in some, shall we say, unsavory practices. I've heard rumors that he's even had trouble with the police. And he takes a deep breath and he says, it's time someone put a stop to Caleb, and I suppose it's my responsibility. The sun is kind of starting to set, and he kind of calls out to Joe and says, Joe, come in here. And Joe kind of comes in with his head down and says, Joe, we're going to get ready. We're going to go down south. We're going to go see what's going on the plantation. And then he kind of looks out. He looks at especially Dr. Taylor. And he says, "Are they going to come and help us too?" And then Giz kind of comes over and kind of patronizingly puts his hand on his head and says, "No, I'm afraid not." And then he kind of turns around and says, "I'm sorry for the boys' forwardness. I'm sure these nice folk don't want to get involved in this."
Well, I already talked to this young man, and I told him that I would help him with his family. So I myself would be willing to go down there and lend a hand.
So while you guys are talking, there's a knock at the front door. Giz says, "Oh, it's probably just one of my students. They're always stopping by. It's final season, don't you know? And they always come by and try and get better grades." He says, "Excuse me," and then he goes to answer the door, and he leaves you guys in the room together.
I'm gonna go take a look at that book.
Yeah, go ahead and talk amongst yourselves.
I'm gonna ask Joe, what can he tell me about these rituals? Seems like Albert Gist is kind of dismissive with this whole occult nonsense, but I ask him, what do you think? What do you know about this?
Well, all I know is it's bad mojo. I don't know how else to explain it. But they took my sister, and I'm worried that they're gonna do something bad to her.
Do they usually do something when they do these rituals? Is it usually something bad?
No. I mean, my mama always talks about Obeah, and it's never anything bad. But that Master Caleb, he's not a good man.
Tell me about Caleb.
Well, he's just mean. I don't know how else to say it.
Does he hit you?
No, he doesn't hit us, but my mama says he doesn't pay worth nothing. We work out and we work at the farm and nothing happens. We don't get paid very much. Okay, so while you guys are talking, you kind of hear there's sort of an escalation up front, and you can tell it's probably not a student at the front. There's you can hear kind of southern accents, getting a little bit louder at this point. So
question, is that book big enough to slip into my purse?
Yeah, you could slip it in there. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do that.
Yes. Okay. So you hear some kind of loud Giz is saying, "I want you to get off my property right away." And then all of a sudden you hear a gunshot.
Ooh, I grab a gun out of my purse.
Yeah, okay. So we'll go ahead and we'll start kind of combat here. A let you three go first. What are you going to do?
Well, I pull out my revolver, and
Okay.
I'm wondering. So we're in a study.
Yeah.
Can I actually? Is there like a hallway leading to the door?
Yeah. So how it's kind of set up is, okay, there's the front door, sort of like a foyer sort of entryway. You guys are kind of in the middle of the house in the converted study, and then the room behind you is, or the room next to you is the kitchen, and then there's a door out to the back as well. And so that's kind of the setup, really. And then there's Albert's bedroom is across the hall from the study. Okay, so Wayne, you've gone. Kim, you're pulling out your revolver. Jeff, what are you doing?
I was in the process of putting a little Irish whiskey into my coffee, so I'm going to quickly put the cap on, put it in my pocket, take out my gun, and I'll nod to James that maybe you two cover the front, and I'll swing around the back.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
I will lean down to Joe and say, "Get out of sight, honey. Stay out of sight."
Yeah.
Okay, and he says, I knew this was going to happen, and he kind of hides. He hides beneath or behind one of the settees or the couches that are in the room there. Let's see. So Wayne, you said you're looking out the front, so you're looking towards the front door. Okay.
Yeah. What do I say?
So you're going to see a very large, brutish man standing in the front doorway. You can tell he has the gun. It's still smoking. He's just shot it up, like sort of up, through the patio covering, I guess, of the front entryway.
Mm-hmm.
So Albert's just kind of like scurrying away at this point, and he says, I know that little Joe stole my money, and I'm here to come get my due. And he has like a real thick accent. Like, it's like you could tell he's from the South as well.
Okay.
And I know he's in here. Bring him out before I gets mad. So that's kind of what you see. So once Joe kind of hears this, he bolts for the window that's in the study.
Grab him make sure he doesn't leave. And then I shout into the hallway. I say, drop your weapon or I'll put one in your head.
He says, you got some friends here, Albert. And Albert, at this point, he's sort of in the front foyer area, and he's sort of like hiding behind a chair. At this point, you start to hear gunshots kind of ring out. You hear gunshots shooting from towards like where the back is, like where the kitchen is, and the back doorway. And as soon as that shot goes out, Joe kind of scurries back to the couch, and he kind of knows that you guys are kind of surrounded at this point. So he's underneath a sofa right now. Go ahead. Let's say, Wayne, go ahead and make a luck roll.
Oh, wow. I know I'm Irish, but my luck sucks.
Sure,
No.
terms.
Sure, Clover. You don't pass?
No.
Okay. So you are hit by a stray bullet. Go ahead and roll a 1d6, please. So you're just kind of like, well, we'll see how bad the damage is. But
2 points.
2 points. Okay, so it just kind of like scrapes your arm a little bit. But you can kind of tell that, and there's still shots ringing out, but there's not really any sort of plan. Like, they're not like shooting directly at you guys. You can kind of get the sense of that. The guy at the front door, he's kind of hiding, or he's He's peeking around the front doorway. He's still outside technically, but he's sort of peeking around there with his gun out.
I'm gonna aim down the hallway. And the moment that he peeks, I'm gonna fire a shot off.
Okay, sure. And you get let's see. Go ahead and I'll give you a +20 because he is framed in. There's a light going down. He has the lantern lit outside. Okay. So you'll get like a pretty good shot at him.
I got a 23.
23. Okay, cool. So go ahead and roll your damage. That's a hit. I think it's a hit.
That's 8 points.
8 points. All right. So he's really hit. Like you hit directly through a bone or something. So he's hollering and hooting. Let me see. Okay. Oh yeah. So he's really, really badly hit. So he's gonna let out a loud whistle. And you hear the gunshots kind of start petering out. Real quick, Tillman, go ahead and do a luck roll because you were towards the back, which is sort of where they were shooting at.
Nope, 83.
83. Okay, so 1d6. Uh-oh.
2 points.
2 points. Okay, so yeah, you just got a little buckshot. Let me see. There's anything else. Okay, so the big guy at the door, he starts running, and he's limping along because he's actually losing a lot of blood, and you can kind of see the trail of blood. Murphy,
I'm gonna shoot him again.
Okay, all right. So he's out of the light now, so you don't get your bonus, but yeah, go ahead and make one more shot.
A 22.
22. Okay. All right.
All right. Ha! That's 10.
Oh shit. Okay, so he's actually at this point he's on the ground. But then you see two other guys kind of scurry out from the woods, and they drag him off to a car that's out kind of by your guys' car, and then they drive off. Okay, so yeah, he's so wait, you said that was a 10?
Yeah.
Or what was that? Okay, all right, yeah. So okay, cool. All right. Okay, so they you can go out and try and shoot at them, but it's pretty dark at this point.
Yeah, so they're driving off. So
they've driven off by this point. So what do you guys do now?
I go and I check on Albert to see if he's been hit.
He says, "No, I'm all right. I'm all right. Is the boy okay?"
I turn around to see if the boy is still in the study.
Yeah, and he's still hidden under the sofa. And Dr. Taylor, I'm assuming you're comforting him.
I'm checking to make sure that the people by the kitchen have left too.
Yeah, so
making sure the coast is clear and.
Right. Yeah. At this point, the gunshots have stopped. If any of you look outside, you can't see anything at this point. So, so everyone that was there is gone.
Okay. Then yes, I will then go and comfort Joe.
Okay.
It's all right, honey. The bad people are gone.
He's very upset, but he does appreciate your comfort.
I asked Albert, who was that man, or who were these men? Say.
Okay, let me see here. He says, well, he claimed little Joe stole money from him, wanted to see him again. I wasn't about to let that ruffian in, of course, and obviously it was part of some plan. Lord help poor Caleb, or I guess it would be poor Joe at this point. So he has no idea how he tracked Joe down. Let's see. All right, so he does. He says, I have no idea how he tracked him down here so easily. I'm grateful that Joe is safe and that you all weren't hurt too badly. And he kind of notices your wounds and says there's wrappings in the bathroom to kind of wrap up your wounds there. And he says, I had a feeling I need some help dealing with my brother, and after this disaster, I'm sure of it. Thank God you were here, or I might have been killed. So you guys are kind of like patching up your wounds. The police do arrive, whether or not you called them or not, because of the gunshots. So they take down reports. Obviously, Murphy, you're there, so you know who's there.
Yeah, I give a description of the car as well.
Yeah.
I don't think license plates were invented at this time.
Probably not. But, when the police kind of ask the professor to describe who it was, he says that he describes who it was, and then little Joe kind of pipes up and says, that was Big Raph Bodine. He's one of the overseers down at the plantation, and gets kind of like wants to shut him up. He's like, but the police don't really care. Like, it's out of their jurisdiction, really. But basically, they just kind of make sure everything's okay, and they said, well, we'll keep an eye out for him.
Okay.
Now they do say, we do want y'all to stay here. Well, they wouldn't say this because they're in Arkham, but they say we do want you to stay in Arkham at least for the night. For us to conduct our investigation.
Absolutely. And how it works.
Yeah. So, but other than that,
they
say
out of your jurisdiction, officer.
Well, if these men are from South Carolina, there's not really a whole lot we can do. We'll keep an eye on them and, see if we can find them. We're going to have our police cars driving around the town. We'll make sure they don't leave. But if they get out of town, we'll try and get a hold of someone in South Carolina. But, chances are if they get out of town, we'll be out of luck. Sorry, Missy.
Missy?
Okay. So what are you guys going to do for the rest of the evening?
I'm going to have a stiff drink.
You're going to have a what now?
A stiff drink.
Professor Giss just kind of looks at you and he's like
a stiff drink of coffee, right? Or maybe tea?
Sure.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear.
Yeah,
I can go for a stiff tea as well.
Okay. Professor Giss just kind of pulls out the brandy as slightly hidden, and starts pouring everyone a glass. He's just like, well.
Where does he? Here's the question: where does he pull it out at? I mean, where does he pull it out from?
He has like it in one of his cabinets, sort of hidden behind,
I give him
sundries.
I give him a word of advice, and I take him over to the chimney, and I say, see this little nook right here? That's where you should leave it, because most of the time we don't even look there.
Okay, good to know. Thank you, officer.
No, thank you.
So what else do you guys want to kind of do this evening?
Well, I'll say.
I'm gonna read that book.
Okay. I ask him because I don't know if these guys are going to try to come back. But if you want to come with us, I mean, I have a place of my own. I don't want to infringe on the Dr. Brunner, but I need to go and get this, actually looked at by a professional too. And yeah, Tillman, you guys
could call him too. The professor has a phone if you wanted to call Dr. Brunner.
Okay, so I'll do that. I'll make the call. I'll fill in Brunner.
And, so Volton, you don't understand, Volton. Look, The sponge is the most important part. If it's not placed between the skull cap and the head, then the 3,000 volts won't go through the person's body and kill them.
Really, it won't go through. It just stays there.
Their head will just catch on fire. It's disgusting.
Ring, 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 ring.
Unos momentos, there's a phone. I'm speaking Spanish now.
You're learning Spanish in addition to your occult studies.
Yeah.
It's so low.
Yeah, this is Dr. Brunner.
And doctor, this is Murphy.
Yeah, you've been gone a long time. What's going on?
And I basically fill you in with everything that happened, including the tale from the boy, and then the attack. And,
yeah, you come back now so that I can see what is wrong and help you fix it.
Would you be willing to host the boy and Professor Geist?
Yeah, this is no problem. He has two of my children are gone to the Miskatonic University. They stay there, and Carl is staying with friends. So we have 3 bedrooms.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll be there shortly.
Yeah, drive carefully.
Yeah.
Watch out for small children running into the road.
Of course.
Involved in this, Bruner. We don't want to get involved.
Yeah, you keep saying that, and still...
Shooting guns is different.
Besides, we have to resolve this problem with the sponge, which you don't seem to understand.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not fully gathering why the sponge needs to be between the skull and the plate. Why can't they just put the plate right here? There's just no sponge.
They take the sponge and they throw it in the water, because water is a good conductor.
Oh.
And it smells like bacon.
Is that like an important step too?
What?
Is the water on the sponge important, Bruner? Is that important?
Yeah.
Well, then,
otherwise the sponge bursts into flame.
What happens if next time I forget to put water on the sponge?
Well, it's going to have a fire. And it's going to smell like bacon.
I love bacon. Bruner.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so we'll have the whole crew kind of show up at Dr. Bruner's house, and I'm sure you fill him and Walton in on everything.
Can I go back real quick? 1 second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe while Murphy was on the phone.
Yeah.
Can I just pull Joe aside and I'm gonna kneel down to get on his eye level and ask him, did he in fact take something from the Graf Odin?
He kind of looks at you like, no, of course not. Why, I can't. There's no way I'd be able to even get into his house.
Okay, I didn't think so, but I just wanted to ask because he said you had something of his, and
you don't have to do a psychology roll. You're pretty convinced that he's telling the truth.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you wanted to do at his house before you leave?
That was it.
Okay. Cool. All right, so we'll show up to Dr. Bruner's house, and everything is explained. Beds are made, whatever. So, are you guys going to stay at Bruner's house, or are you going to?
They probably all live nearby, but
yeah, I can go back to
bye. One leaves.
Okay, bye.
Albert and
I'm
Joe.
out. Okay. So yeah, if you guys want to just kind of stay there. So
I'll come back in the morning for breakfast.
Okay. Do you want to just kind of? Well, yeah. Let's do that.
Will there be bacon?
Yes.
Yeah. Bacon's delicious.
Hopefully, it's not from what was it, Cold or Blackwater Creek or whatever.
Bacon, the most important meal of the day.
Yeah.
It's boar meat.
Yes. Okay, so we'll just say everyone's kind of exhausted by the night's events, and then you guys all show up in the morning for breakfast. Over breakfast, Professor Gist, kind of he's sort of just thinking. You can tell he's thinking about everything, and he says, I wonder if any of you are familiar with the worship of the Obeah god Damballa. I know you, Mr. Murphy, are quite interested in the occult, and I was discussing this with Dr. Bruna as well.
Can I do a occult roll? Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Both
We already
of
been
you.
discussing.
Yeah, actually, all three. Whoever has a cult, go ahead and roll for that.
I got a 4.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I passed.
Yep.
It's mine.
4. Wow.
Cool. So,
I passed as well.
So, Dr. Taylor, you would have learned about it in that book that you stole from.
Did I spend half the night reading?
Professor Giz. It was pretty dry reading, but basically it just sort of gives sort of an overview of what Obeah worship is. It's like pretty standard kind of Encyclopedia Britannica kind of accounting of that. So
White people's version of it, in other words.
yeah, pretty much. So Professor Giz is actually kind of shocked that like all four of you know what Demball is, because he wanted to like astound you with his knowledge or whatever. But
I studied at Miskatonic.
Right.
Yeah. So, that's what I think.
And actually, you know, some of you might even kind of recognize Professor Giz. None of you have like had him for classes or seen anything, but you've probably like seen him out of the corner of your eye at Miskatonic, because he is a professor of psychology at Miskatonic. And you know, from what you know, I mean, he's pretty much just in the background. Like he isn't like a major player like at Miskatonic University, and doesn't involve himself in the petty politics of of the university. But yeah, since basically most of you guys know about it, I'll read a little bit more of what it says here in this box. I just need to kind of like make sure I'm not revealing too much here, but I'll kind of read here. So, you know, as I was explaining, you know, Obeah is neither good nor evil. It's neutral or amoral. It's the person who is good or evil depending on the use of Obeah and the sort of magic that's involved with it that makes it bad or good. Many blacks in the South are not rigidly opposed to Obeah. So, you know, while there are some that, you know, are pretty, you know, fire and brimstone, Orthodox Christian, you know, no idolatry involved or whatever, most are pretty open to it and kind of incorporate it into their daily lives. They know that there are dangers involved with Obeah, and you know, if you ignore those dangers, you know, you're basically doomed to you know, to death or worse. They know that if you perform a spell in Obeah, and it's improperly done, there's a shock. There's a reciprocal action that occurs with that. The priest in Obeah, which is also known as a hongan or a mojo man, who stumbles or strays, is subject to a correction by the gods. So you do know that there's usually a kind of almost like a karma aspect to it. So, you know, if you do bad by Obeah, then you get a punishment in return. Bad Obeah arises from the intention to do harm, to blind, deafen, paralyze, or kill. Its rites are often conducted in cemeteries or in the dead of night, attempting to attract the attention of long-forgotten elder gods. Bad Obeah calls up the dead to serve as zombies and summons monsters from other planes. Monsters so summoned will do the bidding of the Mojo Man or the Obeah Man. However, they must be fed frequently upon human flesh. If they grow too hungry, they will turn upon the hongan and eat them. And, you know, while you guys are kind of discussing this over the table, Caleb kind of hints that this is probably what Caleb is more interested in, is sort of this bad Obeah, and sort of explains further what that does. Good Obeah is a way of ironing out the minor difficulties of life. Its spells bring love to the unloved, forgiveness to the unforgiven. Much of Good Obeah is an attempt to ward off harm done by evil gods. This is accomplished by spells, amulets, and charms. Such charms can be twisted to selfish ends. Obeah does not usually involve human sacrifice, as Murphy knows, though it does frequently involve animal sacrifice. Most Obeah people in the South regard Christianity as a part of Obeah. Christian paraphernalia, crosses, pictures of Jesus, Bibles are often used in good Obeah. The two aspects of Obeah, good and bad, make one whole, and it is not always easy to distinguish between them. However, you can you can clearly tell at some points whether something's bad or good Obeah. Let's see. Okay, I think that's about it. But Gis does say, well, actually, some of you have Cthulhu Mythos. Go ahead and roll a Cthulhu Mythos real quick to see if you know anything about this Damballa figure.
No.
Nope.
94.
Nope. Okay. All right. So Gis just kind of states, as you guys are kind of discussing sort of general Obeah, the sort of theology behind it, Gis will tell investigators, tell you guys that his brother has apparently been seduced by the primitive Damballa worship and is now driven to commit what he feels are criminal acts, such as kidnapping some of the sharecroppers and terrorizing them. So Gis, just kind of states, well, this is something, that is unheard of. I know most of you Yankee folk have sort of a bad impression of us in the South, but we do treat our people good, and I will not stand for something like this happening to our workers on the plantation.
I've got a couple questions. I
Yeah, absolutely.
don't know if they were answered already. May I ask, Professor, what do you grow on the plantation?
Let me see if they included in here. I think rice is involved.
Rice?
Let me see. Because I don't know if they're in cotton country. I don't think so.
Oh, rice would make sense if they're in the swamp.
They are swamp. It is swamp, yeah.
Isn't North Carolina tobacco?
This is South Carolina.
South Carolina. I'm not sure if they do that, but let me see. Sorry.
And also, I don't recall hearing a description of what the professor looks like.
Yeah, I'll explain that. So it looks like there is cotton there,
Okay.
because they do explain cotton gin. So yeah, there is cotton, rice. I'd say even indigo.
Okay.
Indigo is grown in South Carolina, if I remember from my AP US history days. So yeah, I'd say that those are going to be the main ones. If I find any other ones, I'll let you guys know.
Okay.
So yeah, Professor Gist, I guess the way to describe him is he has kind of sunken in eyes. He looks very much the scholar. You can tell he wears glasses. You can tell he's spent many a night looking at old books. He does have a sort of, I'm not sure if I call it charisma, but he does have maybe like a professorial attraction, kind of, where like he does seem like he has like an air about him, kind of. Yeah. Go ahead and everyone do a psychology roll, I guess.
Nope.
Oh, failed.
Pass.
I missed that one too.
Okay. So, everyone who doesn't pass, you kind of get sort of a basic idea of him. Maybe a little bit morose, but he does put on a good show, I guess you could say. Tillman, since you're kind of used to looking at people's motivations, you can tell that he's how to put it. He has a practiced way about him, if you put it that way. He's definitely covering up his Southern heritage. You can tell he is making an effort to hide his accent. And you can tell there's a little bit of condescension or patronizing, however you want to say it, towards his home. And he's trying to accommodate himself to sort of northern mores. You definitely get that sense. Right?
Okay, that's understandable.
Yeah.
I have a question for him.
Yes.
I have one too.
All questions, yes.
Okay. Do you own the property?
Own the plantation?
Yeah.
That's going to be in my brother Caleb's name. My father passed it down to him.
I see.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm not sure to ask it in game or out of game because it's a little touchy.
Yeah.
You're using, or Joe is using the term master, and I know this down south, and we're dealing with plantation. Is Caleb actually running like a slavery operation here, even though it's been abolished?
So, yeah, you would have noticed, Albert tries to get Joe to not call him master up in the north. What you guys would probably know about this time is that in the South it was kind of almost like an honorific more at this point. There is definitely, though, a presumption that that they are in control. Like the white owners of the plantation are in control of the sharecroppers, because even though the sharecroppers are technically free, the way sharecropping worked is, they would get hired on by these plantations, but then they'd be required to provide a certain amount of their harvest to the landlord or the master of the plantation. So if you bring it up to Albert, he would say something like, well, like I said, it's more of an honorific. It doesn't really have that implication. They are, of course, free to leave at any time. They're not under duress. But if any of you have more of sort of an idea of what's really going on in the South right now, it's basically like slavery light. It's de facto slavery, not de jure slavery.
It's actually almost worse than slavery.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's not great. So let me see. So Giz says, it's quite a stroke of luck that this poor child, this illiterate child, was able to get off of the plantation and make it all the way up here. I'm at a loss to explain how he made it all the way up here. I mean, that's about 1,000 miles.
Yeah, I don't know how.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I can only assume it's divine providence that played a hand into his meeting.
It must have been.
No,
It must have been.
I was going to say he seemed to be pretty sure of where he was going when he was taking us here.
Yeah, like I said, it's unbelievable. And he kind of pats Joe on the head, and you guys kind of notice he sort of instinctively distrusts Albert. He kind of stiffens up when he does that. So you guys would have noticed that at this point. Let me see if he wants to fill you in on anything else. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. But I'm going to see.
So what are our plans? Shall we go down there and investigate this? This
Yeah, if you guys
brother-
want to
Keeping
kind of
away.
discuss this amongst yourselves, that's fine. I'll have Joe and Guess leave the room if you want.
Well,
Yeah,
I plan to go down there.
Why don't you take Joe in the other room and give him some cookies?
Yeah,
You
that
like
sounds like
cookies, Joe? Yeah, I bet you do.
He kind of nods. Yeah. They head off to the kitchen.
So we already know what Volton is going to say, but let's hear it from him. Do you think we should get involved in this?
South is just out of our comfort zone.
I have to admit it's a bit, we are going into the hot and steamy part of the world. But
Get another
There's
book
nothing-
out of this.
yeah, you could get another book. And we won't mind at all if you find the hazard pearls this time all by yourself.
Well, according to my book, I already did, Bruner.
Yeah, but you know what? You wanted all the fame, and we did not want the fame, so fine, you know.
Well, if nothing else, as the dog barks downstairs, if nothing else, it's a chance to learn about voodoo and mojo and all of this stuff. Out of character, there's no clear connection to the mythos at all in his mind, so he's like, this is just
Right.
another job. My only concern in character is being shot at. Because last time we did something together, we weren't getting shot at. Now we are. So it's like we're trading in monsters for bullets. So,
At least you can go to the hospital with a bullet wound and talk to him about it.
Yeah, that's true too. And
You can
besides
say,
that,
I've been shot, and they will
besides
know what to do
Volton,
for you.
I think you are now invulnerable and you can't die because you got licked on the back of the neck.
you still haven't provided me answers to that, Dr. Bruner, so you're not as good as a doctor as you say.
Maybe I don't want to tell you because I'm watching you to see what happens.
Love you too, Bruner. You know what? And I look at the group and I stand up and I pull out my flask and I look at James and I say, "Find me." But I say, you know what? Let's go to the Carolinas. Why not? I'm all on board.
Yeah, I think so. Why not?
Road trip.
If nothing else, this is just going to be this. It's just us showing up there and saying, "Hey, where are they?" And him being like, "Oh, over here," and then that's it.
Yeah, I'm just glad he's not from Connecticut. I don't think I want to go that direction at all.
Nope.
So Professor Giz kind of comes back in and he's like, well, let me give you all a little bit of background on my family and sort of what is sort of the situation on the plantation right now, because of course he was listening to your entire conversation, so he knows that you guys are going to come with, so he's very happy about that. But I'll kind of explain sort of what his view of the plantation is right now. So he kind of explains sort of the family history. As you can kind of gather right now, the plantation has seen better days. They're basically trying to eke out an existence using sharecropping as like a means of wealth. But right now agricultural products, I guess, aren't doing very well. And so that sort of old style of doing things hasn't been particularly effective. So I'll just kind of read this section here. It says, the impoverishment of the Gis, like so many other members of the Southern continent aristocracy, began immediately after the Civil War. The Gis lost almost everything when the Southern Rebellion, which is the term that Professor Gist uses, failed. By the 1900s, the Gis were eking out a living, renting their land to sharecroppers. The house in Charleston was sold. The education of Albert and Caleb used almost the last of the family's capital. During World War I, High prices for cotton brought a return of prosperity to the plantation. In the 20s, however, prices for farm products plunged to all-time lows. Worse yet, the boll weevil invaded South Carolina and devastated the cotton crop. It is said in the South that the 20s may be roaring for the rest of the country, but they're groaning for South Carolina farmers. Since the falling out with Albert, Caleb is the only Gist now living on the plantation. Even though life there is not prosperous either for Caleb or the sharecroppers, it's remote and provides some privacy. So from what you can kind of gather, he's pretty much the king of his castle in this plantation.
How many workers?
That's a good question. I want to say there's like 50 to 100. Like there's still quite a few there. Yeah, it's still pretty large. But mainly I think most of that results in the just isolation of the plantation. Like the sharecroppers really have nowhere else to go.
Right.
And it's not like they're given like, train tickets out. They have to, they're basically like getting just mere subsistence living, so it's, once again, it's basically modern day slavery.
Right.
Is what's happening there.
Yeah, if they don't obey and if they don't please, then they're just told, get out. Mm-hmm. And they starve.
Where are they going to go?
Yeah,
At least doing something familiar.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys are pretty much down to go. Okay, so
how shall we go? Shall we go by train? Shall we go by car? It's 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
Train would be best, probably. Save us a 12-hour car ride.
Ride in comfort and style.
It'll be more than 12 hours.
Yeah, like 3 days.
Yeah, save us that trip. So
let's see, by train. Train takes actually a day and a half.
Yeah. Okay. That's because it can go all night long without taking a rest. So.
Yeah.
And as much as I would love to spend 3 days with you guys,
I'm gonna take a week. So.
Yeah, this takes a train. And then we can rent a car from Hertz when we get there. It's a train.
Yes, absolutely. Rent your Model T. All right. So what are you guys going to do in the meantime? Oh, I should say that the police have called you and have said that a large group of badly dressed men with thick Southern accents, one answering to Professor Gist's description, arrived at the train station in the night of the attack. And apparently they were responsible for the theft of an automobile that was parked in front of the station.
Mm.
That's about all they do right
now. And one of them looked like Professor Gist?
No, one of them looks like the big guy at the one that Wade shot at. Yeah.
Gotcha.
That Murphy shot at. Yeah.
I was going to say that,
Yeah, Gist just showed up with the people that were shooting at him.
Yeah. We want our car back. Yeah.
All right. So, what do you guys want to do? Let's see. It's probably like mid-morning right now. There might be an evening train, or you guys can leave in the morning. I mean, whatever. If you guys want to do research, do you want to get all your stuff together? What do you want to do?
I'll get all of my trunk packed and everything ready.
Yeah, same here. I'll bring some extra ammunition.
Yep.
A few cylinders.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring my trunk with all my clothes and all the toiletries and everything like that. Then I'm bringing my 2 duffel bags, which contain survival gear and my parapsychology investigation gear.
Okay.
Take this shit seriously.
Awesome. Okay, so Walton is going to be packed. Dr. Bruner. Dr. Bruner, what all are you bringing with?
My clothes. Of course, I've got my gun, my Luger, my medical equipment, maybe some things to read, but not really anything special.
Okay. All right, Mr. Tillman.
Yeah, same basic. I'll probably pack for a week. Bring my gun, flashlight, notepad, deck of cards, maybe to pass the time.
Okay. Dr. Taylor.
I'm going to pack my 38 and an extra. What would I have for like a boot gun or something? You know what I mean?
Derringer? Yeah, is that
Yeah, okay, maybe a Derringer. Okay, because they do have
a
like
Lady Derringer?
Yeah.
Lady Remington.
I'll pack Susan.
Susan. Okay.
Wait, isn't the Lady Remington a thing that women use to shave their legs?
Oh, I think it is. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Legs. Why would you do that? Shave your legs? Don't be ridiculous.
Somebody starts shooting a gun and she pulls out her Lady Remington and says, "Oh, damn it!"
You pull out the razors. Use the razors.
Okay, so in addition to my 2 guns, I will take stationery for writing and my sketchbook for making sketches and notes, and reading material.
All right.
And a journal to make sure I'm writing
I'm
it
gonna
all
see
down.
if I have anything on Obeah, because I want to look more into
And
this.
Detective Murphy.
All right, I'm bringing my Remington 45 revolver, several, I'll say about 6 cylinders for the quick load. I'm going to also bring my detective kit, basically magnifying glass. It's an old-fashioned forensics type kit. A camera. Now I'm wondering if I can get a smaller camera, not one of those big jobs, but a smaller camera.
I think so. Yeah.
Several rolls of film.
Yeah, I think Kodak, the Brownie was becoming
The
popular.
Brownie. Yeah. So I'll bring a Brownie. And do they have reloadable film with that?
I'm not sure.
I think we got into that a little bit before. They had
Yeah.
just like the rolls of film like you would buy.
Yeah. So
Right.
I'll buy several of those. And
So
of course,
you still have to send them in to get them.
Yeah. I know. But I'm going to be taking it for evidence. And of course, my clothes. Like a week's worth.
Oh yeah, I'll take some clothes too.
And what I'll have you guys do is, if you wouldn't mind just kind of writing down everything that you're bringing with, and then just email that to me later.
Okay.
Just so that we have it. I think we'll go ahead and leave it there, and then we'll start off on the train next time. Did you guys want to do any research or anything before you go stop off at Arkham Library or Miskatonic or whatever?
Definitely.
Probably some more info on this religion, but
Okay.
we've already gotten a lot of it.
Yeah, and you know what you kind of gather on it, everything pretty much syncs up to what Caleb has told you about and what you are familiar with. But yeah, it might not be a bad idea to brush up on that and make sure you're
Is it possible for me to do a library use roll or an occult roll to see religions that use human sacrifice?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which one would you like? Library use or occult?
Go ahead and use library use.
Okay. That is a 55. So I passed.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you kind of get sort of a knowledge of sort of all the known iterations of religions that involve human sacrifice, and there's not really a whole lot of like modern day religions that use it. And like I said, Obeah, it isn't like a regular aspect of the religion. So anything that you kind of find in the libraries is gonna kind of say that maybe in the past or maybe in secret things like that happen. But some of the more sober analyses of the religion are going to say that that's pretty much verboten.
Anything related to like voodoo, like specifically voodoo? I know because voodoo's the voodoo or hoodoo. Hoodoo's like
Yeah,
hoodoo's a good one.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure on that, but they are related. Like I said, Santeria, voodoo, Obeah, they're all kind of in that sort of general theology of sort of West African syncretic religions that sort of popped up in the South and the Caribbean. So you can kind of see that. Voodoo, I don't think, was as much of a presence in South Carolina per se at this point. I think
more in the Caribbean and Louisiana,
New Orleans, Louisiana kind of thing. But there's a lot of similarities. Yeah.
Okay.
I have an area that I want to research, if it's okay. Since I'm looking up more on Obeah, because of our past experiences and stuff, I think my train of thought was how much I hate frogs at this point. But could there be any correlate? Well, I want to see, maybe it's my own research, if there's any correlation between the gods as they're described in Obeah and something in the Cthulhu mythos. Since I've looked into a few books.
Oh boy, if you've looked at like Necronomicon, we're gonna have to go into all that stuff.
No, we don't. I mean,
loss and all that, and the spells and everything. Yeah.
Here you can borrow
You're
my
gonna have to roll a Cthulhu mythos for that. Yeah.
Come on. Funko. Nah.
No. Yeah. That's about the only way that you would know that if there's any relation to it. But I mean,
I guess the worst of the Obeah gods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Damballa, from kind of what you gather, is generally associated with evil and with sort of the bad Obeah or the bad mojo.
Damballa,
yeah. So you kind of get the sense, and once again, pretty much what you're going to find is very sort of dry anthropological, even pretty racist, like stuff. So it's going to be pretty dismissive of a lot of it.
In Obeah, do we run into characters like Papa Legba and things like that?
Similar things like that.
Okay.
The Santeria gods, if you're familiar with that. But once again, it's such an all-encompassing syncretic religion that you can really incorporate any type of theology you want. You could put Cthulhu in Obeah, like you could just have him as one of the gods, So so it's such like an all-encompassing thing. It's really hard to sort of pin it down and say like that's Obeah and that's not.
Could I just do a brief search of the mundane where we're headed? Like, is it rural?
That's fine. Very rural. Yeah, very, very rural. It's so you guys would take the train to Charleston, and Gist kind of explains that he has a friend there that will drive you to the plantation. But it's a ways out. The closest sort of town or hamlet to the plantation is Walterboro, South Carolina. So, and that's in Colleton County. It's about 50 miles away from Charleston.
Is that we could probably get a place to stay there, maybe?
Well, so if you kind of discuss it with Gist, he'll say that you guys can probably stay at the plantation. It's big enough to accommodate you all.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Anything else before we end the session? Okay.
We're all gonna die!
Cool.
Okay. Hopefully not.
Just thought I'd get that out of the way.
Okay.
Cool. That was really exciting.
Yeah, good game, guys.
Cool.
Okay, our players included Thomas McKeon, Kim Smeltzer, Jeff Wilkins, Wayne Worthy, and myself, Tom Rayleigh, with Troy Wildryer as the Keeper of the Secrets. Our musical intro entitled Drunkard's Lone Child was performed by Clifton Hicks and is being used by us with his permission. You can find his music on his website, cliftonhicks.bandcamp.com, and you'll find a link to that in the description below. Our games are played using traditional tabletop methods, with music and sound effects added in post-production in order to create a richer listener experience. This is Tom Rayleigh inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure into the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Until next time, good luck and good gaming.
I'm a poor orphan child, I must beg for my bread. My father, he's a drunkard, my mother, she is dead. I wander alone and I moan and I weep for the voice of my mother to sing me